Good afternoon, Ngozi Talk Show's family. Is Nomsa here at Ngozi Talk Show's Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. So with me today, I'm with Carol Ann Cooper, Shireen Love Group, and Kamal Im. How are you, ladies and gentlemen?
We're good, thank you.
Very well, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So our topic today is the courage to choose you. Following purpose amidst pressure. And this smells Kamau, guys. You know that Kamau is here. He deals with purpose. So, in a world that often demands we follow the expectation path, embracing the courage to choose ourselves can be one of the most profound acts of self respect and empowerment. Yet, the road to doing so is rare or smooth. It involves grumbling with the internal and external pressure that push us to conform, please others, or search for security over satisfaction. So, Kamal, you chose this topic. So, what was on your mind when you chose this topic? And also, if you can explain to the audience, what does it mean to follow your purpose amidst these pressures? These
Oh,
pressures.
all right, fair enough. So I was thinking, since last week we talked about the science or the
Mm.
psychology behind purpose and happiness, I figured we'd fill in some of the blanks because going through life purpose or that journey of life purpose, well, there are stumbling rocks, or let's call them
Mm.
people, branches in our life that can cause some pressure, whether it be a partner, family members, friends, mentors. So it happens that we have pressure from the outside world, and that sometimes causes us to deviate a little bit from our own purpose in life, and the pressure continues, preventing you from moving forward. So there are things to do, and there are people to let go of as much as we love them, in order for you to find that balance of life and that to follow your dream of fulfilling that purpose. So that was the idea behind following up with this subject or this title. Now, last week we spoke about purpose and happiness, right? We talked about the famous questions: what am I really here for? The existential crisis of uh, how do I live my life? Is there more to it? Can I, what do I do? Now I've achieved this and this. What is there to life? All of these questions. The reason behind my existence. Am I living just for myself, or am I living for others? Can I do both? And so I think we delved a little bit into how it presents itself in different cultures. We spoke about the Japanese culture, they call it ikigai. The French, they call it the raison d'être. And the ancient Egyptians, they called it ma'at, right? So the idea behind purpose, or uncovering your purpose, or many other coaches and people talk about finding your purpose, which is a term that I really, really don't like, just to be against everyone else. For me, it's uncovering, because we discussed
Mm.
this. It's inside, it's innate. We just need to peel off the layers of culture, of events, of beliefs, and many, many other things, to in order to just open that present that is there, right? The idea is not new. We have one of my favorite psychologists is Viktor Frankl, right? And he survived the Holocaust, and he said that purpose is what drives us forward, right? And then through his time in the concentration camp, he observed that when people have something to live for, even during dark times, they are more resilient. And so purpose, in a sense, is there. There's another theory that stems from purpose, which is I think, who was it? Darcy and Ryan, Daisy and Ryan, I think the psychologists were, which is called self-determination theory. Um, And in order for you to, self-determination theory is the theory of, well, fulfilling your dreams, fulfilling your personal needs in life. And in order for you to do that, there are three stages or three different drives, core drives that you need in your life in order for you to fulfill that purpose. And so you need to align your um, autonomy, or basically the choices that you're in control of your choices. You need to align your skills and your how effective they are, how you feel, what skills do you feel are adequate, and how you effectively use them in your life. And you have the relatedness, how related you feel, how connected you feel to everything else. And so by achieving those three parts, or those three core um, drives or needs, you can fulfill and align more or less your purpose uh, as a guide for your life, for your goals, right? I think I answered both questions that you had now, Nomsa, right? So yeah, that's the whole intro and a quick summary of last talk, and a nice summary of what we're talking about today.
Okay, yeah. It certainly follows on nicely because, yeah,
Yeah.
as you say, we talked about purpose and happiness and where that comes from and how it's interlinked. And um, it is to have that courage to move forward with your purpose it is challenging because there are external pressures,
Yeah.
and is actually acknowledging or knowing where do these pressures come from. And sometimes we're not even sort of aware of it. We make a choice, but we're not aware that it's because of some external pressure.
Yeah.
Because the external pressure could be just some expectations that have come down through the generations, and you find it actually shapes your thinking, and therefore you're not fully aware of your purpose. And this is where the unhappiness can come in, and you don't feel quite fulfilled. So it'd be great to explore, where do these pressures come from, and how can we, move forward with our purpose in spite of those pressures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think that that's such an important thing, is how do we manage the pressures?
Mhm.
I think what is so useful is, obviously we hear that we believe in purpose. We believe there's something, and there obviously something that's even more intrinsic in that is, why do we believe it?
Yeah.
Why, what is it that makes us say, well, there must be a purpose, there must be this, there must be that? And I think a lot of it stems down to a basic need and a fundamental drive, which Kamal was saying, and doesn't matter how big or small the purpose is. We all have little purposes, even just throughout the day. Like, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I desire something, right? And that can be like a little purpose, a little goal, a little whatever it is. It's a dream, right? And in some ways, purpose is the big dream, right? The big dream of why we're here. And what gives us that sense of fulfillment. And I think that this is the key aspect, which is that we're all here self-determining, right? We're all here from the moment of conception, when we were nothing into something, right? And the moment we came from nothing into something, those cells were already deciding you. They were already creating you. And in the first part of our life, that happens very much almost on an intrinsic level. It's a genetic determining kind of thing. But as we start to come into the world, every child, every parent would think, well, I don't want my child to stay a child. Ultimately, all children are born so they become adults. They're all born so that they will, from a biological point of view, that they will reproduce, right? The thing that we don't always think about is the fact that reproducing can also be reproductive of ideas, right? So we kind of separate those two things. We think, oh yeah, we're here for that. And that probably was in order for us to get to where we are now. But that's not our primary objective anymore. Our primary objective is connecting more to what's the bigger picture of how do we become the embodiment of that energy or the soul or the spirit that we are. And, how in times of struggles, because we are, because we don't trust ourselves, we don't believe in ourselves, and we don't have faith in ourselves, we often don't follow through on our purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
We often get discouraged. And this is, such an important thing, because most of us will have those dreams. We've all had those dreams. I don't think there are many people that won't have. If they haven't, then there's stuff that's got in the way of it.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, when they're little, every child will have a dream. What am I going to be one day? Right.
And that's only the start, right? Like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I think the real key is, yes, one is finding what purpose is, but what is it that, that gets in the way, I think is really important. And when we feel it, why don't we carry on with it?
Yeah.
These sort of things that matter. I'm looking a lot into how we move from a mindset of where, what's the difference between belief and faith, right? And there's a very big difference if you really pay attention to what it is. Faith allows us to get straight into the thing where we don't have any doubt.
Yeah.
Belief still has doubts.
Definitely.
So when we can identify what that is, then we think, okay, so how do we get to have faith in a different way? That we connect to that purpose that keeps us and the light burning.
Very true.
No, I'm sorry.
I agree with you guys. I think when you like purpose requires clarity, first you have to have clarity, and then you need to define, like what Kamal said before, and Carol Ann and Shireen as well, what truly matters to you beyond the noise of the society and expectations, the family expectations, and the opinions of others. This could be as broad as committing to your career that fulfills your passion, or just be specific of what you want to prioritize in your life mentally and your emotional well-being over relentless and productivity. Most of the time, I think people, they don't fulfill their purpose because they want to please people, and they don't want to follow their dreams. They don't want to be judged. I've seen it with myself that when I actually went to Northern Ireland and had a meeting with Dr. Olukoya, really finding out about my destiny and stuff and making a decision. When I come back, there's so much judgment, like with people, and people started judging me, even with my family. The only person that I can say was behind me was my mom. When I say this is my purpose, this is what I want to do, and like doing the things that I do. So some people may easily not fulfill their purpose because they really don't want, there's these expectations that people will be like, but that's not you. But who is me? How do you know it's not me? So I think that's where the problem is. If you can cut the noise and cut everything and just stand between you and God, and just, because it's just you who knows that purpose. Like me, I'm with you, Kero, Annie, Shireen, and Kamal. I don't really know. I might know Kamal and might know you guys, but when it comes to your destiny, it's personal. Really, really goes deep and personal into within your heart. And you get to tell me. And that for me, my job is to listen and support.
I like how you presented that struggle that you're having here with the judgment, because that was that was the next thing I was going to talk about, since we're talking about pressure from the outside world. The many people probably growing up have had family dinners, right? Where everyone has an opinion of what you should be doing with your life,
Yes.
right? We've all met these people
Yeah.
going to a wedding and sitting next to another auntie, and when are you getting married? When are you having a baby? Right? So everyone has an opinion, obviously, and they're allowed to their opinion. The key here is not causing that opinion to affect us, right? Think about cultures like India and Japan, where they put a very strong emphasis on prioritizing the needs of the groups over your own, right? Yes, I'm not going to disagree. The bonds over there are extremely strong. Then again, it becomes difficult after so much following and hearing the same thing to hear your own voice, right? The noise gathers all around you. And so you can't hear your voice. You can't hear that inner person or inner child or inner young man, woman saying, by the way, I want to go there. I want to do this. This is what I'm good at. This is what I love, right? So one of the most important things is actually breaking through these expectations of others and realizing that the expectations of others can basically go to hell. You only need to see your path and understand that as long as you are steadfast on your path and can achieve it in a certain decent way, obviously. So then the saying, when there's a will, there is a way, will apply itself to what you want to do. And so expectations can go to hell. I experienced this here in Norway. I'm very out loud and I have these sudden reactions with my face, with my hands movements that sometimes shock people. People get scared. They feel like, oh my God, what's happening here? Right? But there's nothing. It's just I'm emotional and I'm expressing myself like a human being. And so sometimes I'm told, you can't express yourself like that. I said, of course I can. Yeah, but it's scary. It makes people feel uncomfortable. I don't care. This is who I am. This is how I express myself. If people are uncomfortable, they can bloody come and tell me. If you are uncomfortable, you can tell me, but this is me, who I am, and I'm not going to adjust myself for your sake, right? So there's a point in life when I believe one has to take control of these situations, of the expectations of others, and living by your own truth. There's a certain stage of courage that you have to take. I think it was a book called the Courage to Create. I think it was the book. Um, and it's a way to, even though you can you might feel that following your path, your purpose can be lonely. You will be met with disapprovals from others. You will be met with faces of familiar people, of family members, like, what is that? Like that, right? You might be lonely. You might have darker times because it's something very personal to you. Choosing yourself is not something simple. It is getting outside of the comfort zone. It is stepping into the unknown. And that is where I challenge and I wish everyone goes, because that's where you start learning about yourself. That's where you start hearing your own voice. That's where you start defining that purpose in a way where you can honestly let go of everything and anybody that tries to pull you down or has expectations. And that's the first thing that really pulls people down, is that expectation, right? It's that expectations of others, right?
And
Yeah.
it takes courage. It takes that an inner strength
Yeah, yeah.
to feel into that drive and to move forward with it. And I sort of was hearing what Shreen was saying about sort of that purpose. If you go back to basics, we're born to reproduce, and that is a purpose. And it's like, yeah, I'd just been watching a program where it's like set in centuries ago, and it was women were expected to marry, have children, and there was no other purpose.
Purpose for
And
them.
they were quite happy in their thing, but there was always this odd person. There was this one lady, girl, she sort of stood out, well, no, this isn't what I want. But she was made to feel wrong,
Yeah.
but she eventually stood her ground and was allowed to then to move away and go exploring, because there were other strong females that she met and realized, no, I can go in, find myself and what I want. And I think this is where a whole of society, we have moved, but there is that primary purpose of reproducing. And I think we have to be careful about somebody who chooses that and says they are fulfilled with that, not to make them wrong, because if that is their purpose and they're fulfilling it and they're enjoying it, then if they're happy, why make them wrong? Why make them question? If there is a bigger purpose for them, it will start to come to the surface. And I think this is where you start hearing the term midlife crisis, because that's when it's sort of, is it a crisis? Or is it that it's now time and able for that deeper purpose to come up?
Yeah.
And rather than saying it's, help you be more fulfilled, that in its sense makes it wrong that if you've been fulfilled in bringing up a family, that there's something more fulfilling. Maybe it's just something else that is fulfilling and that you're here for. And it's then going into that and having that strength to dive into it, find, well, what is it now? But not pushing away the fulfillment that you had in raising a family. If you had that fulfillment and allowing yourself to stand your ground, find that new purpose that is there, and it will bubble up. And as I say, it has various labels to it, but generally it's midlife crisis. And so what if it's deemed a midlife crisis? It's because we're now starting to question. And that's why people look on it as a crisis. Oh my goodness, this person isn't as they used to be.
An awakening.
Oh my goodness.
But you can have several midlife crises, right? You can have several midlife crises, right?
Yeah. So it's allowing that deeper one to come up and to be able to follow that. But then again, yes, it is about understanding it. And maybe something I was reading this morning is about reframing other people's ideas and that as maybe their concerns for your safety. And so if you start to get present to that and reframe it, you've then got a conversation you can have to assuage that and help yourself keep moving forward with your purpose, because it's in addressing the other person's concerns rather than thinking them as a barrier and a challenge and they don't want me to do this. Well, what's actually behind it? What's really behind it? You're shaking their world, basically.
You are shaking their world. Yes.
It is. It's really it's life changing. Like especially when you're used to something from somebody, and suddenly they turn like 180, and then all of that happens. It's like wait, something's happening. I'm not used to this. I want that back, right? And that's what's causing them to most of the times to react that way. It's normal.
Exactly. The contract is broken.
Yeah.
And it needs renewing, right? It needs
Exactly. Right.
reevaluating. So I mean, there's something I think is really important, I think, is one of the things is to kind of understand that we have a biological determination, right? That's one part, and those hormones will do their thing because we have puberty, we go through puberty, and we have this period of fertility, and then there's this period of nothing. When I say nothing, it's not that being obsessed by family and things like that. But because our hormones are changing, And they're now not so focused, the body's not so focused on reproducing. We're now becoming a little bit more regular in our thinking in a strange kind of way. Once you've gone through the menopause, often what happens is there's a bigger clarity, right? It's often you don't have all these things going up and down in your head. And so it makes sense that in like a lot of religions, like the Kabbalists, right? And the Gnostics and the people that have done studies in the mystical kind of ways, they would always start in their 40s, not in their 20s, because 20s was a predominantly biological determinant. But in the 40s, it became something else. And so they knew that on some level, the brain was changing. They knew that the body was changing. And they knew that this would have something to do with how we start reevaluating our lives. I think I suppose what's kicking in for me a little bit is, you know, we live in a system, and the most important thing is we're not here just for ourselves. We have the part of the purpose is really for others, right? We're here to shine our light so that if it was kind of like our God light, it would be so that there's light for everybody else. So I want to really be really clear. It's really about part of our accountability on how we start to say no, how we choose to navigate the path in a different way. I think, you know, when people say, oh, well, they're responsible for their behavior, I get a little annoyed, because for me, yes, they're responsible, but we also need to pay attention to what we're doing to create their saboteurs, creating ours, right? Because we have these mirror neurons, and these mirror neurons means that when someone is back in Norway, when they go all crazy and they say, oh, you can't say that, you're activating their mirror neurons, right? So what they can't do is they can't say, hey, damn it, stop. Right? They say, no, or they don't come out, they haven't learned the skills or the change because it can be quite jumpy for the nervous system if you're not used to it. Right? So there is something about just kind of at the same time going, oh, recognizing, okay, they're not used to this.
Yeah, oh, definitely. It's normal to normalize. Well, once you recognize it, it becomes normal for you. And it really depends on how close you are with the person you're discussing or you're talking with.
Absolutely.
Some people you'll be like, you don't matter. And others, unfortunately, there are people like that you're like, you don't matter. So
yeah. I've been watching a little program which is a Netflix, and it's not a bit, it's a mindless one, but it was really interesting to watch just the nature of this particular person that was in this thing, which was, how do you manage to get people by being super nice, by how you manage all these objections, by being super nice and super open and super kind and still having them do everything for you because they just want to do it, right?
Yeah.
And it was just made me think about this in the sense of how do we, when we're sitting there in our purpose and we're full of passion and we're full of a desire, you know, that's part of it, is activating the system around us so that they want to draw with us. They want to pull and they want us to pull them with it. So I think there's something about that when we start to navigate our purpose and clients get a little anxious, is to say, you know, when you're excited about what it is, you know, you're not meant to do this alone. When you're excited about what it is, you will excite them. You need to talk excitedly about the things that you like, right? So that the energy builds up and they get happier and they go, oh, okay, maybe. But then, as Carol Ann said, when the objection comes, to voice the concern. This is about them worrying about your safety. Reframe it, right? I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at it, and using the word concern rather than anxious is a very powerful word. I teach that to my clients at the time.
I like that. And it's you mentioned something very interesting, which is the clients, when they start walking through that path of purpose, when they start setting their feet and talking when they meet you after a week, or they come like, this, I did this and this, and you can feel that passion and excitement that you're talking with. And the only person, unless they have that support group, support group, their social surrounding, I didn't mean the support group, but the social surrounding that are supporting them, that they feel that progression for them, that they feel emotionally connected to that way of change. That's who they will be able to talk with, and yet they will not. Nobody will ever be able to feel that same excitement and passion and the changes that it creates inside of you, unless it's somebody that has gone through it before, right? And we talked about that. Not a lot of people go through this because they're too scared of it. They go through a midlife crisis, but then they revert back to what they were doing again because, well, okay, well, I've done this, calling it now a midlife crisis just to call it that way.
We'll call it midlife awakening. Let's
Midlife
just
awakening, yes.
change the damn name.
Midlife. Now we're reframing, right? It's
The
midlife
awakening, the
awakening.
quickening.
The awakening. And then that's the interesting thing as well, is that people might see it happening only once, but it actually happens several times in our life, and several times we're reminded. There's a trigger somewhere there, like, ding. By the way, you want to do this on that path, and then you go like, oh no, and then you deviate again. But there is this, and there is that, and there is this. No, I can't do you now. And it's several times in our life that trigger comes. And that's why purpose is not stagnant. Purpose is evolving. It develops. It changes.
Yeah, I'm just curious
Yeah.
as to know whether, Nomsa, do you experience this with clients and people that are wanting to, or in relationships or wanting to try and find relationships, that there is this people finding purpose, and there is this awakening in perhaps one partner and the other one's not on board, and that's what causes relationships to break down a bit?
It happens all the time, Kero Anni, all the time. That, when you meet someone, like when they meet each other, they love each other, they tell each other their dreams, and then the other person now is trying to redesign the other person, and that becomes a problem. When you enter a relationship, you can't try to design somebody or give somebody an ultimatum. Like myself, if you were to give me an ultimatum, that would be a wasted time. Because I was not raised like that. And now, like, I tell my clients, like, I'll sit there and listen. And then for me now, it's like, what do you want to do? What about you? Everybody else tells you this is who you're meant to be doing. This is what you're meant to be doing. What about you? What do you want to do? Because at the end of the day, like, Kamal said, as long as you are steadfast on your path, where there is a way, there is a will. That's really, really powerful. And Kero Anne, you said the lady who stood by her ground and stuff. And then Shireen, you mentioned biological determination. I don't think we are meant to actually change people's purpose. I don't think so. I think our job is to support and support one another. And when we support one another and just be a cheerleader to somebody, and I always tell my clients that do what you feel is right. If you do make a mistake in the process, or sometimes I get clients, they are so frustrated. Sometimes they cry, and I'm sitting there the other end on Zoom, they're crying, and then we talk, and then the following day after talking, I say, come back, and they're completely different. I'm like, what was happening yesterday? And they start telling me other people's feelings. I'm like, it's none of your business what people think. You have to be who God created you to be. You can't follow somebody else. What they think is your purpose is not. And it happens happens so many times. I've had people telling me that I've had to give my wife an ultimatum. I'm like, why? And they're like, you give somebody an ultimatum. If you want me to marry you, you got to give up this. I'm like, what? Yeah. And then I had to give my husband an ultimatum, and the husband agrees. But that person, the day you give somebody an ultimatum, that's when the identity moves away. So I don't know, because I told you guys I come from a royal family. So when I went there, there was this discussion that was intense, and then I come back now. I've made a decision who I want to become, and knowing that God wanted me to do this and stuff. And when I come back, there was this judgment. Everybody was telling me what they think that I have decided to do. And I was like listening, and I was like, that's not what I've decided to do. And the other one is giving me their opinion and stuff. And I was like, you know what, you guys, your job, you're meant to support me until I actually tell you what I have decided to do. Because even today, I've not told anybody what I've decided to do. I'm just looking everybody, making guesses and judging me. But what I have decided to do is completely the opposite of what they're thinking. I'm just being me. I'm just being Nomsa. Even Martin followed the crowd as well, honestly. And that's when I realized that sometimes in life, people can actually make a judgment that can actually destroy a person's life. And when that destroys somebody's life, you can't create your own destiny, because for me, I believe that Kamali has to decide his own purpose within, with him and God in secret. And then when he lets it out, he just needs support. When we say you're not meant to do this, like this woman who stood her ground, for me, that is power. And I have my dad actually used to teach me to stood my ground. And people don't understand when I do my own things. I was taught from a young age that do what you think is right. You can't be a follower, because it's not right.
I like the following part. It's you all three of you know that I do sometimes these social experiments on people just for the fun of it, because it amuses me. And when I see a lot of people just following the herd, and you see them moving together and just doing the same thing, I usually just go in the middle and I meh. Yeah. I bet like a sheep. But it's the interesting part of it is sometimes we don't notice what's happening to us while we're growing, right? These expectations and these pressures are not only done to us later in life, but they start at a young age. They start with parents, unfortunately. Not all parents, but a lot of parents, even though, and the parents usually want the best out of their children, and they tend to push you towards directions. What they see is right for you. What they see can benefit you. Not everyone has the knowledge of setting the path and presenting different options where your skills and because when we're talking about purpose, we have to talk about a few things. We have to talk about the skills, the talents we have. We have to talk about the belief system that we have, and we have to also talk about core values. And core values are usually taken on from family values in a young age. And while growing up, at a certain age, you do realize that certain things are not matching, and that's the start of it. That's when you start understanding, okay, what are my core values? What do I believe in? What are my beliefs? What are my limiting beliefs? And how do I change these things? And bit by bit, you can have that support from your parents, from the surrounding people, where you can achieve and go through purpose yourself. Now, it's not only parents and family members, it's friends, it's like we said, it's teachers, it's everything surrounding us, right? And so I don't want to be a sheep. And I hope there are others that are listening that don't want to be a sheep and follow the herd just because the herd is following it. I tell my children, be different. People will, you are already different. You're not Norwegians, you're only half Norwegians, right? That's a small part of you. The rest of you is a multitude of cultures, is a multitude of knowledge that can push you to places the people around you would never understand. It is a lonely life, but be different. Be something else than the rest. The rest is boring. Being like the rest is boring. That's my opinion, right? Because that's how I see purpose. Purpose is achieving something for yourself, for others, where you are in constant euphoric state. You are, and I'm talking about happiness here, you are constantly happy. You are constantly, and the word actually is not even happiness. It's contentment. And I've said it many times. You achieve that level of contentment that no matter what happens in your life, it's all right. It's okay. And you have that general smile where I'm okay, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference of your inner structure that causes the world around you to, in a sense, to shatter because you see people, you see things from a different perspective, right? You can reach places that nobody sees, nobody understands at school, at uni, or at work. It's a whole different situation.
Mhm. And that word contentment sums it up because it is it's a great word because there is nothing else like that feeling. And I experienced that on Saturday. I emceed a personal development event, and I enjoyed myself. I had fun. I really enjoyed organizing the day, stringing the day together and being sort of in charge of making sure it all ran to time and introducing people, but also leading the dancing as well. I love doing that. And being able to dance again for me was like, oh, it was great. And I'd chosen the songs deliberately each as well for the theme of the day and what was being spoken about. And by the end of the day, I just thought I felt at home. But I realized when people were asking me, I couldn't describe it other than that word you just said, come on, content. I felt a deep contentment at what had taken place that day because I'd had some great feedback as well because one person that was mainly organizing it, he said, oh, I was a bit worried about how it would be. He said, I knew you do a great job, good job, he said, but you actually did more than I expected and it was outstanding. And it was like, oh, thank you. So getting that feedback was great. But for myself, even if that hadn't come, I knew I'd done a great job just because the way everybody was taking part, and you can feel when it works. And I just felt really content. So yeah, that's a great place to come to. And there is no other word because it is just a pure state of being, and you're just like nothing else you can say.
Yeah,
But coming back to your parents pushing you to do your best, and it reminded me really of, I mean, I think there is this shift again because my parents, they didn't have the opportunity to have an education. My dad had to do night school because he couldn't get day release from work. So he had to do night school to study so he could get qualifications to help better himself in his job and in his work. So it was always sort of there's that expectation that the opportunity was there for us to go to college or uni. So it was like, do that. And because I was in that was in the top set. So, no, I was always at the bottom. To me, I wasn't up to going to uni, but my teachers saw it otherwise. And I realized what they saw that I didn't. But because again, it's that perspective. I was bottom of top set 5 sets, you know, so you're in that. That upper echelon. And it wasn't until years later when I had gone to college and I was teaching that I realized actually I put things into perspective. But their expectations were we, you know, get a good education. That's really important. Get a good job. And that is shifting. I mean, because it's much more entrepreneurship coming out now. It doesn't, getting great qualifications is not the be all and end all that I realized it was deemed to be. And so there is that shift in terms of, well, if you don't come out of school with, you know, if you come out of school without any qualifications, is that the end of the world? You can always go to college and study, you can get a job, or you can have your own, you know, business. And I think there needs to be that, allowing someone to find what really suits them rather than pushing them down an avenue, and realizing that the world has changed considerably in that respect. So, you know, do be aware of where those expectations come from. And I can really appreciate where my parents were coming from because they didn't have that opportunity. And I know my mum always felt that she didn't feel clever, but actually she was so creative. She was absolutely amazing. She could turn her hand to any craft, you know? So what, if she'd had education, what could have actually come through, or who knows? But it is just being aware of, well, what are our expectations and what do we view? And are academic qualifications the be all and end all of intelligence? We all know there's the 9 multiple intelligences. There's 8, I think there's 9 now. You know, so everybody's got their own intelligence. We just go to one of them and expect everybody to be that one. So again, that's another expectation. So be aware of where these expectations come from and what one of those intelligences is your specific strong strengths. And that's where your purpose may be, you know, but also awakening all the other intelligences that are within you. They are there. So for me, that's what I've realized. That's one of my purposes, has been to help people to understand that everything is within you. And whatever you feel you can't do, it is possible because it is within you. And if something is pushing you, you know, there's someone in your face that it seems to be better at something than you, they're only mirroring what actually is within inside you. And there's that great quote, was it Henry Ford? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose while you were talking about the different intelligences and things like that, I mean, I put my neurological hat on, so it sits there. And I did a post this morning, which is not really work post, but it was a post on AI and deep thinking. So that was something that was quite useful, and maybe something that's here that kind of is an idea that is wanting to filter somewhere. So I'm letting it percolate a little bit before I say anything about it. But what I really thought about, Carol Ann, was when you were talking about the 9 intelligences, they're just points of entry. Your home, or what you like, or what you're good at, is just a point of entry to a type of intelligence. And when we're able to learn how to map them across, then we have access to others. I mean, in NLP, you can be a person that really is an auditory person. You know, when we're little, basically, a lot of people learn visual and auditory together because those two fit together quite a lot. So the visual auditory space sketch pad. And what often children learn, they learn by rote. So they hear and then they see, they hear and they see, they hear and they see. So they get to be very good visual things, but often the hearing is less until we're older. Somehow or other, the visual is the biggest thing at that point. So most people's language will come into visual stuff, and they'll learn things very quickly. But like English and certain subjects lend themselves to certain modalities, right? So in order to change around or to be able to work and manage other modalities, we have to be able to access it in the way that we probably would normally access it, and then move into the next one. So the idea of bringing something that's visual, bringing it into yourself, and then starting to hear. So utilizing. And I think what we haven't done very often in education is we haven't done this multimodal system of recognizing and helping people realize we have our different styles and we can do all of them. We just haven't found the way around it yet, right? Which I think is a key aspect there. I also think on some level, part of the old teaching was very much didactic correct, and then there was no way of shifting and changing. We never really encouraged children to be critical thinkers. And I think that's a problem that's happening even more now, is that where people are not thinking in the deep style of thinking that they need to think. In order to get your purpose, you've got to do lots of cyclical thinking. You've got to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into your neurology so that you can then start to unfold the purpose, right? And from a sense of what happens in the mind does need to work. It does need to have those pathways there. Now, if you haven't learnt to speak correctly and you haven't learnt to read in a way that allows you to flow, lots of trauma people don't have smooth cadence in their eyes, saccades. So therefore they jump, and so they don't see. And a lot of ADHD people have that problem. And when you start to give them EMDR, things change. So it's, there are all sorts of things that we now understand that helps in getting us into that deeper thinking that then gives us the capacity to be able to get closer to the soul of ourselves, the essence of ourselves, because it does require that repetitive cyclical thinking. What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? Yeah, that happened. Okay, how come? And so that we have all these activations going on in our brain. They're all connecting. And then we come to that quiet space. Namsa, what do you think?
You're
muted.
Going to be words of encouragement. I'll just say to all our audience that are listening, choosing you and your purpose is like having the courage to choose you is a single moment where it's not a single moment. It's like it's a series of decisions that you have to take gradually, step by step, and reshaping your life into one that reflects who you truly are. If you are that person who doesn't believe in God, for me, whatever I'm faced with the challenge, I always go to God and reveal to me, who am I supposed to be? And when the Holy Spirit reveals who am I or what I'm supposed to be doing, I then don't need a human being telling me this is what I need to be doing, because when God makes a decision, he makes a decision. He knows who I'm supposed to be. And I look at my life and I'm like, if I didn't do that, I've listened to that, I wouldn't have been where I am. And also, if I truly, truly need an advice, Carol Ann knows that me, I'm a nonsense at Ngozi talk shows. I just make an appointment. Guys, talk. I know you guys. So I ask. If I don't understand something, I ask. So I make the right decision. But it's not that, like, if anyone is watching, just know who you are. It's okay to make a mistake, but just follow that path that is right for you. And people might not agree with it. That's okay. We're not meant to agree with anybody. just follow that path. And with God, you can never go wrong. Like Kamal said, where there is a way, there is a will, and you find a way. So that's really,
Or the
really.
way gets made for you.
Yes.
Other way around, Nomsa. It's when there is a will, there's a way.
Where there is a will, there is a way. May I say, where there is a hope, there is life. So I just have to, just keep going. And also the path of purpose it's not that easy. It's got to so many bumpy roads. And whenever there's a challenge, know that there's a breakthrough. I've been witnessing that myself lately. When the challenge is presented to you, I'm like, okay, so that means there's a breakthrough. Then I sit back and relax. I do nothing.
Nice. Well, I think we're coming to the end, so I'm gonna jump in and give my last words of encouragement. There's technically, when it comes to purpose, there's technically only one truth that I want the audience to hold dear, and it's very simple. You are not put here by accident. Every step you take, every dream that you hear slowly whispering in your mind, every passion that you have that lights up your heart, these are the signs that are guiding you towards a life that only you can live, right? You will come up with times where you will doubt yourself. You'll come up with times where looking around you will make you feel like, okay, this is not working. What's my purpose? Is it too late for me? The fact is that this world that we live in now needs people that believe in their purpose. Because the more people we have that believe in purpose, the more we can achieve together, right? And this purpose, this life of purpose, it needs you too. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, sometime in the future, you'll get there by step. And so the choices that you make in this life, to let go of doubts, to embrace your uniqueness, your difference, to step forward with courage, ignore the noise around you. It allows you to move forward, right? This is a progression game. It's not about perfection. Nobody's perfect, right? So start taking these steps. Your purpose is there. It's waiting for you. And I leave you with one of my favorite philosophers quotes, which is Nietzsche. And he said, he who has a why to live can bear almost anything. Or anyhow, I think it's what he said. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. That was his quote. That's it for me.
Nice. I like that. I just make a note of that. He who has a why to live can bear anyhow. Love it. There's a few things. One quote that I've got here by Paulo, I'm trying to pronounce his surname, Colo. When you say yes to others, make sure you are not saying no to yourself. And so sometimes that being able to say no to somebody else, I think we touched on it. There's, you might be disappointing someone, or there's some fear behind your response. You need to be able to handle difficult conversations, and you need to be able to stand your ground. And actually the communication, you just come from an I statement, rather than saying that someone's always demanding your time. Just say, something like, I need time for myself at this moment to recharge, whatever. So you're actually bringing it to yourself. You're not making them wrong, but you're just making, it's an I statement. And that makes it a lot safer, a lot easier to do. Also, state your boundaries very clearly, but also perhaps saying